Sonic Lab
TV.
This is the Access Virus TI Snow. It's the latest in the virus range from Access Music, who've been pioneering hardware DSP-powered virtual analog synths since 1995. If you check their website at the roster of artists who've used the virus, it's like a kind of who's who of electronic music and film composition. In fact, some people say that this is the kind of current standard in electronic music production. This is nearly $1,000 cheaper than the next model up, which is the Virus TI Desktop. The way that they've cut the price is, firstly, they've taken all the knobs off the front panel and you access the parameters via these three knobs here. Everything can be programmed via the front panel, but you also get, with the TI system, which is total integration, a software control panel that allows you to access in a much more sort of graphically friendly representation of all of the synthesizer parameters. The other way that they've cut costs is this is only 4-part multi-timbral. It also has slightly less DSP on board. The other Virus TIs have 16-part multi-timbrals and a larger DSP count. Physically, the unit comes with an external power supply, USB port, stereo in and stereo out, and MIDI in and MIDI out. There's no dedicated headphone socket, but you can use this output as the headphones out. So what does the TI system actually mean, or total integration? Well, basically, if I plug the TI via USB into my DAW on my host computer, install the virus control software, it allows me to access the TI's synthesizer engine from my DAW, so it just shows up like any other virtual instrument. But there's more to it than that. I can also use the Virus TI Snow as my sound card. So I'll be able to route all of the tracks and instruments and effects out through the Virus TI stereo outputs. I can also use the stereo inputs to record external instruments and effects. I'm just going to instantiate the virus control. First screen you see here, you can see there are 4 slots. These are just represent one for each of the multi-timbral channels. So the first page you come across is the easy page, which just gives you access to sort of filter and sub-oscillator and sort of some basic sound tweaking parameters. The next page is the browser. This is very cool actually. You can access, there's a lot of patches. There are 8 banks of 64 in here. You can look at it by category. We'll look at bass here. And then you just double click on the sound and it loads directly into the slot. The other way that you can narrow it down is you can type a search term in there. It's Moog, and there we go, we've got a couple of Moog basses, so I'll double click on that one and see what that sounds like. The converters on the Virus TI Snow actually sound pretty good. This is not an area in DSP synths that gets an awful lot of love sometimes, and they can sound a bit ropey. Not so with the Virus TI Snow. They sound pretty hot. So with all this DSP power under the hood, it's not surprising you can get some really monstrous sound. The pads, basses, sequenced and arpeggiated effects. All this stuff is great, of course, but what's the synthesizer like? Let's have a quick whistle-stop tour of what the features are of the synthesizer engine. We've got 3 oscillators, multi-mode oscillators, classic hypersaw wavetable, grain, simple, complex format. It's worth looking at the hypersaw in a bit more detail because it really is something special. This is where things get really massive. We've got, let's just listen, a single waveform. We can now, via means of their patented technology, dial in up to 9 sawtooth waveforms on a single oscillator. But now what we can do is actually detune them. If you look on the screen there, you can detune them, so now they've actually got a bit of That's pretty massive already. Let's just bring some sub-oscillator in as well, and we're starting to really cook. And that's from a single oscillator, remember? Just one oscillator is providing that massive sound. If that wasn't fat enough, we can also add up something called unison mode. So we can dial in up to 8 more virtual waveforms. Incredible. There are many, many, many tonal variations you can get just from the oscillators. And that's just a single oscillator we're listening to. Next up, let's have a quick look at the filters. We've got 2 multi-mode filters, low pass, high pass, band pass and band stop modes. Filter 1 can be switched into analog mode, which turns it into a low pass filter with 4 modes. You can route the filters in a variety of ways. Split's quite interesting because you have kind of stereo effect. You've also got 2 envelopes here, filter and amplitude envelope. 3 LFOs, multifunction, multi-waveform, syncable. You can also run the first 2 oscillators in envelope mode, which basically gives you a single cycle. So that would be equivalent to an envelope. So it's almost like having additional envelope generators if you need them. Destinations are legion. You can send them pretty much anywhere you want. So plenty of stuff there. We'll skip the matrix. This is where you can route multiple MIDI controls, positive or negative values to any of the synthesizer parameters. There are 6 of those slots. They give you up to 18 modulating routes. Arpeggiator. The arpeggiator is 32 step. It's more akin to a sequencer, really. You can use it for actually arpeggiating notes in certain rhythms, user programmable rhythms. You can change the note length, so you can program up your own ones. There's also ways where you could just actually have it play chords in a rhythm, so it's kind of like a rhythmical gate. So that's very useful. And a lot of the great sounds inside the virus use the arpeggiator to great effect. And then you've got an effects section. Now remember, these are all these effects are per part, so you've got quite a lot to play with. You've got phaser, chorus, delay, reverb and EQ. There's also a vocoder in there, which is okay. It's not the greatest thing. Additional distortion, analog boost. There's a lot of stuff that you can do after you've created a great sound to kind of make it even more great, I suppose. We should take a look at the Atomizer. This is a new effect that was introduced in an OS update, and it's available across all the Virus TI ranges, and it's been causing a real stir. So let's have a look at the Atomizer. The Atomizer takes an incoming signal, beat matches it, scans it for beats, and then allows you to sort of play back slices in time, together with various other kind of high pass filters and reverse and things. So I'm just going to play. That's just 2 beats. 1, 8. So I'm processing a live input and then just regarding the outputs, although you only get one actual physical stereo pair of outputs from the TI Snow, you get these additional 3 stereo pairs via USB, which allow you to route the signal via DAW channels. So I'll just demonstrate. I'll play this pad here. It's not coming out of the stereo meters, it's actually coming out of the physical output of the Access TI Snow. Move it into USB 1, then as you can see, it's coming out of the meter, out of the actual physical DAW channel, so I can automate it, put effects across it. But then if I actually want to process this particular multi-timbral slot separately, I click here, USB 2, and there's this little button here within Logic that I press plus on, and it shows me the additional channels for that instrument. So now they're coming out separately out of their own virtual channel. So I can do something like, let's just put something separate over it. So I could put, I don't know, say a flanger, and we'll give that something pretty obvious. There's a resonator flanger, so now I'll just play it. As you can see, being processed separately via this additional output. The latency is actually pretty good on this, so it's a fairly useful way of adding quite a lot of extra processing power from your DAW to process the TI Snow output. There's no denying there's an enormous amount of power in the Virus TI Snow. The engine itself is capable of running amazing sounds. It can sound a little bit sort of artificial and digital at times, but most DSP synths can. The thing is, it can sound really kind of warm and analog, and there's a huge palette of sounds to choose from. I did have a little bit of trouble when I first set up with the USB connection. I was getting all sorts of random latencies creeping in the system. However, I spoke to Timo at the TI Snow development team, and he told me to upgrade to the latest version of Logic, which is 8.02, and I also got the latest version of the Virus control software, and that sorted it all out, so it's very stable after that. So it's worth making sure you've got the latest drivers and the latest version of your software to get the most out of this system. Having said that, I found the Virus TI a very enjoyable experience, and I loved the sounds. They're very inspiring. Even as with a lot of synthesizers where you've got effects, effects are often there to mask the inadequacies of the oscillators and the basic building blocks. Not so in the Virus TI Snow. The basic building blocks of the sound are great and the effects are great. So you can get these enormous, massive sounds, but they're not so massive that they mask everything else out in a mix. They can still sit together. So if you're looking to get into a kind of bigger kind of sound world, bigger DSP kind of thing, I think the Virus TI Snow is definitely worth checking out, if not the other Virus ranges. It's sort of one of those things that once you first get your teeth into it and you first try it, you kind of wonder how you could do without it. And that's the experience I've noticed from people who've actually got into the Virus thing. They find that they couldn't really survive without it now because it provides such an enormous chunk of sounds for their palette. The list price is $15.50 US. It's around 779 UK pounds. It's not an insignificant amount of money to pay for a synthesizer, but you do get a hell of a lot of synthesizer for that money. I'm not sure that I wouldn't be tempted to kind of hold out and save up a bit more for a fully fledged Virus, just purely because having access to all of those front panel knobs, it's a bit of a must with such a deep synthesizer like this.